This is a specialized artisan experience. It's more than just a garment. You are paying to have your dreams come true. Hi everyone, I'm Daisy Victoria, and welcome to a little chat about commissions. If you are new around here, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell icon so you don't miss anything I post. If you are watching this video in real time, then perhaps you would like to know that it is currently a part of COVID. Since Costume College was canceled this year due to the pandemic and current events, as you might imagine, the Costube community is actually filling this whole weekend with costuming videos, events, online socials, things you can join into. So I will put the links below on how you can join into all of the COVID fun times. I might sound a little bit funny today. I don't know if you noticed, but I have braces. I got the clear ones because that way I figured they would be a little bit less obvious. I've now had them for about a year and a half, and this month I was the lucky recipient of some new attachments on the inside of my front teeth, which gave me a speech impediment. I have been practicing talking for a few days before recording this video, but we will see how it goes. So if I sound a little bit off of my normal, well friends, that's the joy of getting your teeth fixed. You may also notice that there are now ads in my videos. That's right friends, I am recently monetized. That is a huge milestone, and I want to thank all of you for helping it happen. So speaking of monetizing things, let's talk about how to monetize our skill sets as commissions. I have taken lots of commissions, custom orders, whatever you'd like to call them, dream projects for other people. I like that one actually. I've had a lot of success in commissions, and I've also learned a lot of things along the way. A lot of things about just making commissions operate smoothly and what I actually need to make them happen. So I'm going to share a little bit of that with you today, friends. Now, if you are someone who is looking to have some sort of very special garment or costume made for you, that's great. You're going to learn about kind of what goes into it here. If you are someone who would like to take commissions, then that's great. You're going to get a lot of stuff out of this too. And if you are neither of those people, thank you so much for watching, and I hope I'm entertaining. So let's start out with a very important fact that taking commissions is a business. This is not a hobby anymore. When you are exchanging money for your services, and in this case there is a product, that is now a business, and it needs to be treated seriously as a business. So the first thing in taking commissions is kind of going through that mindset change, whereas when you just kind of make something for fun, it's just your hobby, right? You're just doing something you like, something that's cool. If you're now taking commissions, there's another step to it, and it really should be elevated in your mind as both you, the commissioner, and the commissionee, because elevating it to that business level is going to make a much better final product for everyone. So let's go ahead and get some of that business stuff out of the way first. As someone taking commissions, since you are a business and you are earning income, exactly what kind of tax structure goes into this is going to depend on where you live. So for example, here in the United States, we pay federal income taxes. We also have different state taxes. There's also state sales tax associated with purchased goods, and that would apply anywhere that you have nexus within a specific state or set of states in the United States. Possibly there's a VAT if you are overseas. Many times the VAT is entirely handled by the customer, but keep in mind that that could be a limitation on the budget amount. I'm not going to go too much into specific tax laws because one, they vary all over the place, and two, I'm not a tax professional. So I am navigating this as like a small person, just like you guys are. You do need to claim your income, so you will be claiming this on your income taxes at the end of the year. So keep that in mind when you are commissioning someone. They are not getting 100% of the money. There is actually still income tax that needs to be taken out of that. So this is not just like magical tax-free money, right? If you're selling online through certain marketplaces, they may actually have sales tax set up for you. So if it's like, you know, Etsy or Amazon or something, they may be able to handle that. But in most cases, you're going to need to take care of that yourself, and you may in fact be responsible for collecting and remitting sales tax on purchased goods. Now, what's also cool about sales tax as a business is that you can get a wholesale license. So that means that when you go and buy some of your materials that you are then going to use to sell, you don't have to pay tax on those because you're going to collect tax on the final product and the government will still get its taxes. Okay, enough about that boring tax stuff for now. I guess it's kind of boring, but it's important. So basically, you need to be aware that there is still legalities and tax structures and things going on. And my advice to you is actually to look at your local area and see what their specific tax laws are for you. So there are different ways that you can incorporate. So as you grow, you may want to become an LLC, which is a limited liability company. You may want to be an S Corp or a C Corp. You may want to remain a sole proprietorship and just function with a DBA, which is doing business as. It's just like a legal name, pretty much, I guess, in layman's terms. Which is what I like, because when it comes to this kind of stuff, I'm kind of a layman as well. So you don't need to go through all of that tax structure and stuff right off the bat. That's something that you can kind of figure out as you grow. So you can start taking some commissions, see if you like it, and then kind of go from there. But I do think that's important for the person who is commissioning someone to understand as well, because a lot of times I have found that people would come to me, for example, and not really understand that this is a business. And in fact, a business pays taxes, and I also pay self-employment taxes on the income that I'm making. So if you pay me $500, I am not getting $500. You know, some of it goes to the government. So while we're on the financials, let's kind of get into the cost of a commission. I've already mentioned that you need to set aside some money for taxes. So that will go into the calculation of how much money you charge a client, or if you're a client, how much money you are being charged. If the commissioner knows what they are doing with their taxes, this will be already calculated in for you. So the cost starts with materials. That is what everyone thinks about when they think of commissions, right? Like, oh, this fabric for this dress costs $500. I don't know why I really like $500 today, but that is only one part of the cost, right? So there is materials that you're going to purchase. So let's say I need, you know, certain fabrics and trims and accessories for this particular garment. That is all direct consumable cost right into that garment, right? There is other costs too. What about the thread I'm using? What about the electricity to power my sewing machines, to power the lights in the room? Basically, anything that's an operating cost is still part of the cost to make that garment. There are different formulas out there for calculating how much to kind of round up, we'll say, the cost of the materials to account for that. And it kind of depends what type of business you are. If you're selling smaller items or larger items, commissions are typically going to be larger items. So the operating cost is probably not going to be as big of a percentage of the final cost of the item as it would be if it was a smaller item. However, it is important to note that there is a cost in there. So some formulas will multiply by like 25% more. If it's a little bit lower cost, they might even double the cost. So it just kind of depends where you fall in there, but do make sure that you are covering those operating costs, because otherwise you're not paying for your business to exist. Oh, and that includes rent, right? Rent for your space. So if you're working out of your home, obviously it's a portion of your home rent. But if you have a studio or something, then obviously it's an additional rent for another space, and that is also part of the operating cost. If you have any equipment you are using, so I mentioned the electricity, you also own the sewing machines, you own anything you use to organize your workspace, the work table, mannequins, maybe anything you use for fitting, tape measures, seam rippers, all of that stuff. It's not going to be that much of a cost per item, right? Because you're going to use it for so many different things. But the fact is that there is an additional cost there, and you can kind of lump that in with the electricity and other operating costs. In addition to that, it takes time to go to the store, to shop online. However you're sourcing your materials, that is time, and that is worth something as well. If you are driving, then there is the cost of using your car to go and obtain those materials. Now note that you want to keep track of all of that stuff, document everything, because in the end you can actually write that off of your taxes. So mileage driven for business is definitely something you will want to know when it comes tax time. So as a little tip for that too, which I learned the hard way, is that it is much easier to keep track of that as you go than to try to figure it out come tax season. So every single time that I go to the store for my business, I write it down, and I know exactly the mileage that I drove on that date for my business. And then when it comes tax time, I simply have to put in the numbers that I've already calculated in a spreadsheet. Now all of this costs together, you could think of a delivery driver. Delivering one item, one pizza maybe, that sounds pretty good, that's not going to do very much to their car, right? But collectively, over time, they are going to need to buy new tires. They're going to need to get repairs, oil changes, all these things, all this maintenance to their car, which is a cost of doing the deliveries. So a portion of that cost goes into each delivery cost so that it's distributed among the entire conglomerate of deliveries. And it's the same thing with commissions. So the cost of operating your commission business needs to be distributed into all of your commissions. The other thing about cost to remember is that there is labor cost. Now, it is extremely easy to kind of look at the minimum wage to determine a cost. And also, I don't know if you're like me, but it's really easy for me to overestimate how quickly I'll make something. So it is important to have an idea of how many hours it's actually going to take you to create a garment. And if you need to make it first and then calculate the cost at the end, that's obviously something you could talk to your client about, but obviously it's really good if you have an idea up front. If you are a very skilled seamstress or costume maker, designer, you should not be paying yourself minimum wage. I know that that is my opinion, but I know that it is also not my personal opinion. It is shared by the industry. This is not a minimum wage job. This is not something that you can just pick up anyone off the street and train them in a day or two to do this job. This is something that has taken many, many years of training and expertise to do. So think about it this way. If you go to college and you get a degree, you've studied very, very hard for a very skilled job, what salary are you going to be paid? Think about it. Will you be paid a mere minimum wage as though you hadn't had the training? Or will you be paid $20 an hour, $30 an hour, $50 an hour, $80 an hour? Just consider that. For me personally, I do not take commissions if I can make more money working at a local store where I don't need almost any training, because that is simply not adequate to pay for the skill level producing the item. It is so easy to get stuck in this place where you want to take less money because the client doesn't have the budget, or you just really want to make it so it's fun for you, so it's like, oh, I can make it and have some fun. But friend, couldn't you make it for yourself and have some fun, and then You don't have to even deal with the client. Consider that. Also consider the fact that you are worth it. Like, you have been honing your skills for so many years. You have a level of expertise that these folks who are coming to you for a commission do not have and cannot easily get, which is why they are hiring you. And you, my friend, are extremely valuable, and you are worth a fair wage, and you need to get that fair wage. Typically, as like a general standard, the more elaborate the outfit, the higher the pay rate is going to be, because in general, more elaborate things require a higher skill level, right? So if you're doing very fine skills like corsetry, that takes a lot of practice, right? Versus just sewing a few straight seams together. Not that there isn't skill in sewing a few straight seams together, but I think you get what I mean. Now, as the client is coming to the amazing person who can make these things with the expectation that you are getting a custom, unique, one-of-a-kind experience. It's more than just a garment, right? If you just want a garment, go find it somewhere that mass produces it, get it done, right? When you come to an artist, this is a specialized artisan experience. You are paying to have your dreams come true. You are hiring your very own personal fairy godmother. You know, in Cinderella, where the fairy godmother comes along and she transforms Cinderella into this beautifully dressed ball gown princess, and the pumpkins into the stagecoach and everything, the dreams come true. That's what you're paying for. Like, that's who you're hiring. So consider that your commissioner is the fairy godmother. And if you are the person taking the commissions, consider that that's you, my friend. You are the fairy godmother, and you deserve to be treated like the fairy godmother you are. As you may have noticed, my big thing with cost is making sure you are paid appropriately and you are calculating the actual cost to create the garment, not just the materials that you're consuming in that specific piece, but all of those overhead costs as well. And that is because, friends, you want to continue taking commissions and thriving as you take them, because a fairy godmother deserves to thrive. I realize fairy godmother is a little gendered, so I feel like perhaps you could be a fairy god person, because I would like all of us to be fairy god people. We're an accepting bunch here, and we love everybody. On the note of wages and how much you are going to charge for your time, think about the difference too between being a seamstress and being the actual commission artist. For a commission artist, we are doing the research, the planning, we're designing how things go together. We have all kinds of specialized skills that are going into this. We may be building a corset. We may be putting jewelry together. If you are doing cosplay, there could be any number of creative props and other things that you may be creating, and you are figuring out how to make all of those items. That is very, very important to think about when you are coming up with a cost per hour. This is not assembly line work. This is not factory work. This is very, very custom, specialized artist work. You are taking the time to sit down and consult with the client, to do the research, to figure out how you're even going to make this garment or this costume come to life. You're figuring out every single step of the way, and you are in charge of all of it. So you're not just the seamstress. You are a seamstress at some point, but you are also the entire supervisor of the operation and every single other role that goes into that operation. And all of those roles are very important and deserve to be paid. So make sure you pay yourself, fairy god person. This really benefits the client as well, because if you want something that's really special, that requires a level of skill and a level of thought that goes into a custom item, then you're going to be much happier with a result that comes from paying someone to do all of that work, because that is truly how you are going to get your dream costume in the end. And if that is what you are after, then Everyone is going to win, and this is going to be a fantastic transaction. Okay, so we are getting started taking commissions, right? We're having a little fun. We're making dreams come true. And let's say we want to grow our business a little bit. So there are a few things to think about that I wanted to touch on as well. First of all, when it comes to promotions and collaborations and working with other artists or other people, influencers, whatever, it is very, very common to get messages where it's just kind of like, here's what I want out of our deal. What you want to do is approach someone with what you can give to them, right? So you want to approach people and say, I have this great offer for you, and if this is something you can benefit from, then I would like to work with you. If you're working with someone who takes commissions, don't expect a free item to keep in exchange for a collaboration. I can tell you right now, I do a lot of photo shoots with models, and it would be cheaper for me to hire a professional model than it would be to gift a gown. So just kind of keep that in mind and be aware of what you're asking for. But that said, collaborations and promotions and cross promotions and stuff, it's like a whole world of possibilities for what you can do to grow your business, to network. Typically, no matter what I'm doing, I'm always thinking of promoting the other person. And that is the mentality you need to have when going into this type of thing. Because if you go in expecting the other person to promote you, then it's very easy to get kind of caught up in your head and lose track of what's really going on. And I feel like that comes more from a lack mindset. On the other hand, if you have the mindset of abundance, that if you put things out there, you will get them back, that is going to bring you a lot more success and a lot more happiness and profit. So think about promoting other people and it will come back to you, because that, friends, is how the universe works. And besides, people like to work with those who will do something for them willingly, because we're humans. So now that we've gone through the meat of commissions and a little bit about how it's a business, let's talk about some ways to have a successful and smooth commission process from client to commissioner. So the thing is, you want to communicate everything up front. If you have certain expectations, either one of you, that needs to be clear. So if you are someone approaching a commissioner and you want some specific details or things you really like in your costume or your gown, make sure you tell them so they know that, because they can't read your mind. If you've got some inspiration pictures, send that along. We'd love to see inspiration pictures, even if we're designing it ourselves. We still want to see where your mind's at, you know, what you're thinking. If you have a budget and you have a deadline, that needs to be communicated as well. Now, the commissioner may not even be able to take your commission due to the deadline. And in fact, it could end up being a rush order. There could be additional costs for supplies, things like that. So that's very important, and that's a part of the entire consultation process. If there are budgetary concerns, that could influence maybe a few things we can do to the design to make it a little more budget friendly. You know, maybe the lace on the hemline isn't really that important and we could skip that part or something like that. You know, maybe we could switch out a specific structure for a different structure. There's so many options. I mean, it's custom made for you, so sky's the limit here. The other thing is measurements. Now, obviously, making clothing for someone, you want it to fit them, right? If you are the client, you're going to be responsible for those measurements to be accurate. I always encourage my clients to go to a tailor who is experienced in measuring people, because that typically produces very good results. If you have a friend who's very good at measuring, they can help you out. If you are commissioning something from someone who is local to you, or you could travel to them, now then you can obviously do some measurements in person. You could do fittings in person. If someone is not local, there is the option to do sort of a remote fitting. So in that case, the commissioner, the maker, the artisan, if you will, would have to create a mock-up to send to you for you to put on and kind of model it, for lack of a better word, and you will help in the process of adjusting it to make it fit you perfectly. That is something that I can do. I find that for a lot of projects it's not really needed, because if you are very, very good with your measurements, and I am very good at translating those measurements into my patterning, then it tends to work out pretty well, but that remote fitting can definitely be something that helps. One more tip for you is that when you have something custom made for you, or when you're the maker who made something custom, this is a really, really special item. Remember, this is like the fairy godmother brought your dreams to life. So once this item is made, it needs to be cared for with utmost love and respect. This is something to be treasured. And you know what? If you are the person who had it made, I bet you the artist would really love to see pictures of you in it, maybe videos, maybe some kind words, anything to kind of show off what they did for you. And I think it'll make you feel really cool as well, because hey, your dreams just came true. You should be happy. I think commissions can be very successful if we put some systems in place beforehand and we take care of things like making sure we get paid properly, making sure that we know exactly what's going into the commission and everyone's kind of on the same page and happy with it. And ultimately, they can be really awesome. That said, commissions are not for everyone. So you may ask someone for a commission and they may tell you no. It may just be that they don't have time. It may be that they don't want to make that particular item. It may be that they don't want to take commissions. And that is 100% totally fine. That must always be respected. If you guys have any more questions about commissions, drop them in the comments and maybe someone will answer them. Maybe it'll be me, maybe it'll be another person. If you guys want to see more about what I make, like these girls here joining me today, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss anything I put out in the future. If you want some extra cool tips and tricks, you can join my Patreon and be an extra cool patron. I don't know why I type when I do that, but oh well. Also, I'd love to see you on all of the social medias. I am Daisy Victoria everywhere, so I'm very easy to find. You can also find my website at daisyvictoria.com. Don't forget to check out the rest of CocoVid so you can join all of us fantabulous costumers for all kinds of costume fun times. So check my description for CocoVid links. And if you're watching this later after CocoVid, well, I hope you enjoyed the video, and you can still check out all the other costumers who participated in CocoVid. They would still love to see you. I will be doing 3 videos for CocoVid this weekend. This is but the first one. The second one will be actually a live stream tomorrow. Ooh, featuring 2 of my very good friends, Ariana and Courtney. We will be talking about historically accurate versus fantasy interpretations of historical costuming, and what you can do to make your historically inspired fantasy costume super amazing. And finally, I do have another video coming out on Sunday about corsets and kind of getting started with corsetry. Not to mention, we have a ton of other cool videos from the other costumers, so make sure you go check out all the cool stuff, because it's pretty cool and you don't want to miss it. And don't forget to collect your badge if you happen to be here for CocoVid. If you're here after CocoVid, oh well, you still learned about commissions. A+, friend. Alright, see you next time. Bye bye.